What happened? Okay. We'll be discussing about gender and development concept. Okay. This is important. Gender and development. So, prior to discuss about gender and development, we focus on the women problem, the issues of women, various challenges that women are facing in Indian society. And when we talk about the development discourse in it, we also need to go back to the feminism and feminist movement, without which we cannot have a good understanding of the concept gender and development. And many a time it is also said the concept which came in much later, trying to co-opt the structural problem and challenges that women are facing in Indian society. Prior to it, we also have some emphasis on women and development, women in development. So we have different approaches to deal with the women issues across the world. It is not limited to India that we have some approaches to deal with the women issues. And when we talk about the movement in India, those women collective activism to deal with the women issues, we get to find that they are integrating these approaches in their policies, in their agendas and programs. Okay, so when we talk about gender and development, they are trying to situating the structural inequalities and also inequalities that created imbalances in gender relationship. So in a way it has tried to locate women in uh, cultural patriarchal and also caste hierarchies and the structures, and try to find out the inequalities which is permeated through those very structures. Unlike the earlier approach, we have that women in development and women and development, which is much more simplistic, we say. And there are also critics which say that gender and development approach is a kind of sloganeering of, you see, gender dimension, and there is nothing new in that approach. So, critic usually criticize gender and development in those lines, saying that women in development is also quite, you see, encompass, encompassing approach. And we also have women in development prior to it. So similar women in development and women in development, where we find the role of women in like family, even in society and in institutions. But more than institutions, they're trying to deal with the problem of women in private and public sphere. Okay. So when we talk about women in development, they focus more on the reproductive role of the women. So here you also need to understand the patriarchal biases. So when we study feminism, when we study women issues, it is not simply understanding one problem. You need to understand the whole structure in it. Okay, the kind of problem that women are facing, women in India are facing, women in our localities are facing. So here we will see that Indian women are different from Western women. Our needs, our challenges, our problems are different from Western women. And hence, when we talk about feminism, which is a movement which is also a resistance against the patriarchal society, and showing us to adopt some innovation to bring in change in the life of the women, is uh, a different variant, I'll say, in Indian context, just because in Indian society, patriarchal, you see, injustices or even patriarchy is legitimized in such a way to um reduce the power of the women here in Indian context, unlike the Western feminist concept, which usually said that women are very weak and also submissive, and they need protection, and that's why they try to bring in the role of classic patriarchy, the insistence of classic patriarchy. in order to protect women. But here, in order to, you see, curtail the power of women, that Sakti, we need a patriarchy. So, in that way, we see that we have different understanding of feminism here in India and in the West. So, why I'm saying about feminism, because without understanding feminism, you won't able to understand the development discourse. Okay, so it is very important to understand the root of feminism here in India. So we talk about goddess Kamakya, goddess fertility, who is goddess fertility. We talk about goddess Lakshmi, we call it but Lakshmi goddess. This is a goddess, like, god of basically abundance and wealth. We talk about I Opesari, which is also equated to that. Treatment and cure of some diseases. Okay, so we call the goddess or pray that goddess Apishuri during that illness, during that we call Bakhanta Ulwa, then we actually call her to cure our disease. So like that way, we have different goddess which are being revered, and women are also become an epitome of Sakti and empowerment. And in order to curtail that Sakti, male power is legitimized here in Indian context. And it may sound very absurd also. For me also it sounds very absurd, but you see that's how Indian feminism is different from Western feminism. But in Western world, it's said that female are very weak and submissive. That's why we need protection. We need to give them protection, and that's why they try to insist in the patriarchy, that classic patriarchy. We also had a classic patriarchy, that male subjugation over women. When women are being oppressed, women are being dominated by male folk. So you this might also sound for a few very absurd, but at the same time, this is important to understand the nuances that involve with this women's issue and challenges. Because when we talk about rights, group rights, activism, we see that there are certain situations when women are always told, women are always, you see, their role, their nature, their relationship with man are calculated different way. Okay, so here when we see some of the practices, old practices in Indian context, we see that we have that witch hunting. Okay, so especially those women which are being marginalized, witch hunting was also quite prevalent, right? Not only here in India, in other part of the state across India. Like we have like Daya and Tikkar, Boxy. These are different terminologies which are being used for women. Women, which that is actually this Dain, we call it Daini, we boxer, then Tikkar. Okay, these are names which are associated with this Daini or Dayan or witch, which are used in different part in Madhya Pradesh, in even Bihar, in Gujarat. So this is a very prevalent practices across India, witch hunting. And here also, you see that in certain areas, even in Kokrajhar areas, it was very prevalent. Nowadays, we see less number of cases of witch hunting, but there was a period, the time when I joined this university, there are many cases of witch hunting which are prevalent for, like, even after 2010, perhaps the number of cases of witch hunting have reduced, but prior to it, there are many number of numerous cases of witch hunting which were found and reported also, and some cases were not even reported because of the remoteness of that area. So we find that it is also prevalent in ethnic communities. Okay, so we find when women is very assertive, when women is not conforming to the norms of the society, and many a time when a male member renounced the drinking, which is considered as a deviant to the societal norms, then women is being accused that she is also possessing some kind of, like, that malevolent forces in her, because of which she is not, you see, uh, letting the male folk or male member of the household to mingle with us. So she is being accused of witch hunting in that way. And there are also cases when women are very independent, very assertive. Even women who got a job, when they acquire a property through inheritance, also found themselves as a victim of, witch hunting. So they are accused as a witch. And there are certain cases when there is infertility in household, miscarriage happen, or any kind of diseases which cannot be curable. So in that cases also some women are considered as a witch. Even the female in the household are considered as a witch, okay, or accused as a witch by the society. So this kind of cases were prevalent even in Kokrajhar in the Boro district. These are there are frequent witch hunting cases which were being reported. Even my mother also one of the rescuer once. She went there. She rescued one Boro woman named Subhadra. Then she also donated blood, and she was also rehabilitated for 1 month in hospital. And she was also given some kind of occupation. She was made engaged to some business and like loom and all, which was being given by the Mahila Samiti that my mother is engaged in. So, and she was dug up to here. So she was dug inside the ground and dug up to her neck, and she was being rescued later. So there are many more cases, you see. And it is also prevalent now. We cannot say that that cases are nowadays, there are no cases of witch hunting. There are cases of witch hunting, but it's not reported. Many time cases are not reported because of the media biases, and because of showing the developmental gimmicks and all. Perhaps it's not that reported. So you see that when we talk about the witch hunting, so it involves the local ontologies. We call local ontologies or indigenous logic is always there. And there is also a customary law which you cannot uh, avoid. There is a customary law of that community, of indigenous community, which will always rule the decision of identification of the witch, and who will be accused, and how to cure, and what to do, etc., etc. So when we talk about adjudication of those cases of witch hunting, there is always a kind of you see superimposition of the customary laws of the patriarchal practices of that communities, and also some religious and communal doctrine which comes into play. Okay, and many a time we also see that because of some of the narrative which are highly colonial, the way we consider the narrative of the people as highly derogatory, okay, highly irrational. There are irrational, but we simply we uh, consider and gave it a stamp that these are irrational, uh, 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 narrative, without even looking into the community sentiment and having a right intervention to eradicate it, because of which these practices are still prevalent. Are you getting what I mean to say? And this is a part of this, you see, that decolonizing perspective. I also presented a paper there where we have highlighted the colonial narratives, how it is making the local epistemologies, when we say local epistemologies, local knowledge system, indigenous logic, indigenous ontologies, as something which is very derogatory, okay, which is irrational and are full of you see fiascos. Okay, so they have tried to uh, uh, simply you see completely erase those narratives. So in the process of erasing those narratives, we are not erasing the actual practices of evil practice of witch hunting or those derogatory practices. So we could not find out the right intervention to deal with it. We simply say that okay, these are these remote communities, you can't go closer to them because they do have a customary law, it will definitely bind them, which is very irrational and make them be irrational. So you have been criticizing their laws, you have been criticizing their perspective, but you are not giving a solution to it. Okay, and hence you see that these derogatory practices are being prevalent, and we do not have an indigenous epistemologies also which are being archived, which are also being saved, and we are not trying to look into their perspective why they consider a person a witch. Okay, so that is a different kind of understanding nowadays in decolonizing perspective. In academics, we are talking about decolonizing narrative, decolonizing perspective. So we do bear a kind of colonial understanding. We are simply making each and everything derogatory, which is not accustomed to our vision, our perception, our understanding. So we see that this kind of practices are available. Then when we talk about the first wave of feminism, there are certain wave of feminism which are also integrated to the development discourses. So we might also say that witch hunting is prevalent because of lack of development, because of underdevelopment, because of lack of governance, illiteracy, remoteness. These are the regions because of which witch hunting is prevalent in certain areas. Remoteness of the places, geographical remoteness, and issues and challenges, problems are not even reported. Okay, and many a time we also don't want to reach them because of the infrastructural challenges. We cannot even go to that community. We try to interact with that community because of the infrastructural challenges. There is no transport available, and also you see that just because some cases are available, we feel threatened to go there and talk to them, or they can also accuse us as a witch, or they can uh, uh, take any, like, punitive actions against us, and we might also be the victim of their perpetration of whatever crime. So out of those stigma in our mind, out of those threat perception in our mind, and driven by the threat perception or stigma, we won't feel like going to those areas and intervene properly. Okay, and hence we see that the kind of development perspective that we have is also somehow, you see, inadequate in terms of dealing with some of the crime. So, if witch hunting is a crime, we do not have adequate developmental intervention to deal with it. One is lack of governance. Okay, we simply let the community drive by the customary laws. When we talk about the customary law, these are very important. So this is also a non-state legal structure, and we see that when we discuss about women's right, non-state customary law will always take precedence over the state law. In its communities, we have religious communities, okay, Hindu, Muslim. So in every communities, we also have a non-state like customary framework and legal structure, which will have their own laws in terms of inheritance, right to inheritance, property law, which is there, and also about right to marriage. And in that way, you see that patriarchal society is trying to control women's life, women's fertility, women's labor, and women's productive forces, and also about their day-to-day activities. Okay, so in everywhere we will find how we are being subjugated. Now, at young age, we won't able to feel that man is saying against patriarchy, but in at one point of time, perhaps you also become a like a member of that patriarchy, and consciously or unconsciously, you will be, you see, facilitating that perpetrations against women. but at one point of time, we do not think that deeply. So these are certain issues you're supposed to think deeply. You see, the way I have chosen some words to speak. So it is beyond development because it is a right issues. It is related to right. It is more political. Okay, so we are not simply restricting ourselves, understanding the development of women, but how to bring the development. If women are not conscious of their right, okay, if women are not aware of their right, how to bring development? And hence, when we talk about gender development, these are some of the discourse. We are co opting certain terms. We are co opting gender terms and trying to bring development for women. So, initially, we also have women in development. We had women and development. So we have changed the language only women in development, then women and development. Then we have gender in development. Gender is being co-opted, and we try to intervene into the development discourse. But you see that there is a communalization in society. In Indian society, feminist discourse is also communalized. If you talk about the Sahbanu cases, there is communal, that feminist discourse is communalized about their inheritance right, their property rights. Okay, so and it is not like that we are against the patriarchy and against that. You see equity. So there are also different strides of feminism. You see liberal feminism, radical feminism. So there are certain women which may who may go to that radicalism because of the kind of trauma, kind of sufferings that they have met. There are also feminism which are who are still believe in liberal doctrine, so that equal rights, able to achieve that equality at par with the male code. Okay, so witch hunting is one cases. So you see where you try to locate those different strides and how to bring those different strides to understand those feminism. You talk about liberal version of feminism. You talk about radical version of feminism. Liberal version, that is what is equal pay for equal work. We talk about right to vote, okay, right to property. That was being, you say, given to women during suffragette movement in 1960s, and even in western world, basically in 1860s suffragette movement. Okay, and in 1960s and 1970s, so this is suffragette movement that came in western world, okay, in Europe. So Mary Wollstonecraft that also that spearheaded that movement, talking about importance of women's political right to vote, women's participation in politics, so that they could have equal play or equity in public life, because women are confined into their family boundaries, at confined into home. In even UP, Bihar also, you see that majority of women are confined into the home. Like, unlike a northeastern state, we get to see that women have participated in labor force in bulk number, and in different way women are also found to participate in unorganized informal labor force. But in UP, Bihar, you get to see, even in Rajasthan, you get to see many women, except a few elitist women, many women, they contribute majority of the household share, but still they do not enjoy the basic rights. They do not enjoy the political rights. They do not enjoy the civil rights. Okay, because everything is being controlled. Their life, their that's what their fertility, their reproductive forces, everything is being controlled. Okay, what they want, what they don't. So their day-to-day activities are being controlled. Okay, so we could see that when we talk about the liberal strike, so it is still relevant. Okay, we don't talk about the radical strike. So in movement here, there are different movements. We talk about first wave feminism, second wave feminism, third wave feminism. In Indian context, if we look at feminism, we also have different strides of movement. We have first wave feminism movement, which also came in 1960s and 70s. It was actually culminated prior to independence, but it was carried out. till 50s, 60s, but from 70s we do have the second wave feminism. From 80s, 90s we have the third wave feminism we get to find, and more in 2000, 10 till 2010, we actually see that the feminist movement has uh, uh, got to become much more intersectional. Okay, but it was started, that movement started during the colonial period only, so where women were subjugated by the patriarchal norms, like there was satida pratha. Okay, there are also various societal ills. So we see that English educated people uh, were the early reformer of the ill practices against the women. So the initial reformer or initial mobilizers, or so-called people who spearheaded that women movement in India, were the English educated women, both male folk as well as female folk. So male folk who were trained in Western liberal ideologies and education, so they also got the idea of liberal democracies. Okay, so they find the existence of societal ills in the society, like widow, there's a bar in the widow marriage, child marriage is already prevalent, and satida pratha, and they tried to bring in reform in the existing legislations. And also we had some elitist women, and that group basically consists of those that newly emerging professionals, then women educators, and who are also recruited in schools and all. Okay, and also some progressive homemakers who joined the movement, at least for their daughters to come out from the confinement of the home. So if you look at the early, you see, Indian feminist movement, they focus on those gender, that women in development perspective only, but although that framework came much more later, women in development, WID, uh, and also some of the issues, not necessarily women in development, because but you see partly women in development, some of the issues. So these are some of the development frameworks. If we try to put it different movement, different hesitations, that our country has witnessed over the period of time. So how to find the development discourse in those movements? That's what I'm going to interpret. So we see that their focus was to reform the society. Okay, their focus was to reform the society and put an end to those evil practices of the society. Okay, like we see that put an end to those satida pratha, it one of the ill practices, and also we talk about those, you see, this, widow remarriage, they call for widow remarriage, and also put an end to child marriage and all. So specifically those issues, but development angle also came in, because they focused on training of those women, vocational training of those women, so that they could also get to find some kind of subsistence at home, sitting at home. So they are supposed to may train with embroidery and other designing. Okay, so they focused on the subsistence needs of the women, those elitist women who are west turn educated, or they're educated in West, or even educated in universities, but having that Western ideas and Western concept in in them, and being absorbed in it. They try to focus on skill training of these women. So there were also some organization, like Anjuman Trust is one organization. Then All India Women. More about the AIWC, All India Women's Conference. Okay, then Anjuman Trust. So Anjuman Trust actually tried to remove the barriers that women face in terms of having a collective alliance, as well as try to focus on, you see, skill training of the women, in the sense that there are women, they could not come out from those confinement, the household confinement, because of threat perception, because of lot of inhibitions. So that has restricted them to come out and mobilize for collective actions. Meanwhile, you get to find a nationalistic struggle, which was launched by Mahatma Gandhi, that also given a call to women to come out and join the freedom struggle, freedom movement. Many women came out and took part in rally, but those were also like educated women. So illiterate women could not come out, could not have the guts to come out. So this organization, there are some organizational innovations at that point of time. You say that there were also some organizational innovation. They try to find out and address, find out the cause which impede women to come and join these collective actions, and try to address those impediments, those barriers which actually blocked women's entry into the public space. Okay, so they made various awareness campaign and try to understand their problems at home. They find out that that might be a problem, because many a time one thing that because of the patriarchal subjugations, because of the insecurities that do have security issues are there once they come out into public space, who will look after their children and all, and also about their own security, which also bothered the household head. That is also a prime issue. So a lot of issues were also considered during that point of time, but they try to create an awareness that it is important to come out and take part in collective action, to speak for themselves, and also to get themselves trained to have a subsistence for their own, to have something for their own, through which they can not only engage themselves but also earn a livelihood. Okay, so this organizations, this Anjumani Trust was basically working on that. That women, All India Women Conference also had a very important role, vital role in mobilizing women. They basically focused on political right of the women, the right to vote. So many people didn't come out, so even join that, the collective actions. That is again a political, role of the women. Women coming out and join hand in any collective action. This is a political right of women. Okay, so coming out and join hand in collective action. Okay, so that right to assembly, that is a freedom, that is a right to freedom, right to assembly. This is a political right, and right to vote. So basically, they are also focusing on the right to assembly, right to vote, the collective rights of the women. So who found themselves into the household confinement, how to like bring them from the household confinement, how to reduce that boundaries and differences between the public and private space, because there is always a line, always a boundary between public and private space. Public space are dominated by men, and private space are dominated by women because of the security issues, you might also say. So some kind of western concept is still there, and even you see, when you call evil practices which have been there right from the very beginning. Okay, so security issues are also the prime concern. And security issues are concerned, but at the same time there are also some kind of familial nature of violence. When you talk about domestic violence, you will say. So that is another issue that came in the second wave of feminism. So in 1960s and 1970s, and right from the initial period, like prior to independence, we see that it focused on skill training of this women basically. Okay, and also efficiency, that is called efficiency approach, and we call it welfare need based approach, and we call it anti poverty approach. Okay, so women in development basically focused on three approach. One is efficiency, that is efficiency, and it is continuing in second wave of feminism. And then we talk about need, that is need based. Need based is basically welfare, that is a welfare need based approach. And then we also have another approach, that is anti poverty. Okay, anti-poverty, that is women in development. Women in development. So this is a discourse that came in much later, but we see that the influence of it which found prevalent in different activism, different movement. Okay, so in terms of efficiency, we talk about capacity building and skill training. Okay, then we talk about welfare and need-based approach when we are trying to find out the identifying the actual needs of the women. On that basis, we are trying to meet those needs. And also, a female family planning is also another women welfare and need-based approach. We talk about anti-poverty. So anti-poverty, in order to reduce the poverty, so it focused on two prong approach. One is also welfare to distribute. That's what that nutritional benefit to women, the food grains and all. So even through public distribution system, not only for female but also basically even for yeah that female only, that lactating mother and that children and lactating mothers. So that is also another welfare schemes. And anti-poverty schemes was there. Anti-poverty schemes is basically related to how to reduce the poverty, how to reduce the poverty to educate women. Okay, so making all other infrastructure accessible to women. Okay, bringing women to the service sectors. Okay, and giving them equal opportunity and equal pay, and also making all other social securities available to women. Okay, social security mechanism available to women. So these are some of the development centric intervention during the first wave feminism. But if you look into the agenda of first wave feminism, but you see that in the second wave feminism, we get to find much more intersectional understanding of women issues and challenges, which actually started in 1970s. From 1970s and onwards, we actually find the start of the second wave feminism. Okay, and we see that intersectionality of the issues because after 1970s, women movement is also relatable to student movement, Dalit movement, peasant movement, tribal movement. Okay, so they are locating their problem with numerous other movement. So it is intersecting with other movement. They're trying to locate it, okay, after 1970s. Okay, so we are not simply studying women issues. We are also relating women issues with other group, the issues of other group. So we see the multiplicity and multifarious nature of challenges that women are facing, the problems that women are facing in second wave feminist movement. And what happened that in second wave feminist movement, we also found the role of middle class women. They coming out, they rejecting the elite women of first wave feminism, and also urban women who spearheaded the movement and took decision for middle class and lower class women. They said that no decision were top down because they were taking decision. Most of the time, elite women taking decision for even for their daughter. They took part in the movement just to make their daughters free from their confinement. That was their intentions. And also they took decision for that lower middle class or middle class or that poor woman. So that was a top down approach which you get to see in the first wave feminism. In the second wave feminism after 70s, we see that numerous issues came up. Okay, and these issues also of different character, different identity. So different identical issues, but identity-based issues only. Women movement, that pigeon movement came up with their own issues, pigeon identity. Student came up with their identity-based issues. Okay, so they're trying to equate with them. Okay, and so lower middle class women also coming up. Okay, and the middle class women coming up, and they said that we will participate into the collective alliance ourselves instead of letting upper caste women decide about our goods, our benefit. So we ourselves will decide what will be good for us. Okay, so that was just change in the second wave feminism. Okay, so you see the changes over the years. This is very important to understand. Don't confine your understanding to some narrow boundaries. So don't limit yourself to narrow confines. So you need to know how it has transformed, how movement has transformed over the years. So you see that this is much more emancipatory and empowerment centric and participatory. So second wave feminism is participatory, and this is also related to women and development. Women and development, it is a bit radical. There is a first wave feminism. Okay, women and development, they are trying to relate and um, proceed the women issues, women problem, and development together. So, and also they are trying to change the system. So by participating into the movement, they also advocate for changing the system to create a, you say, equitous relationship. They said that system is such that it will not provide a equitous relationship. So they are more into trying to change the system. So they were a bit radical. Okay, but there are also critics who usually said that women and development is radical, but it is inadequate at the same time because it is not trying to look into the structure in which women are locating them. Okay, so it is not speaking much about the structure. Okay, like it is not, it is also talking about the caste and all, but again, it is not emphasizing on the structure because it is in women issues, women's questions. Okay, and hence in the third wave, we get to find role of gender and development that came in 1980s. So in gender and development, it is all about how society look at women, gender, the relationship issues, how society differentiate role for men and women. Okay, so then the structure issues come, the structure, the patriarchal structure, the caste based structure, the class structure. Okay, so where women can look at the problem, and somehow it is also see this is how things are facilitating, things are progressing. So in second wave women, again we see a bit radical wings and radical that, foundation of women came in, and we also find that women's studies was institutionalized during second wave feminism. So we also find that both activism and academics were going hand in hand, and women studies got the insight from the field and as well as from social work, from even the you see that critical studies and trying to uh, create a epistemological foundation uh, on women challenges, women's problem, women's questions. Okay, and then in the third wave, we get to find the issues of the marginalized women who were historically being neglected. Like Dalit women came, issues of disabled women came in 1980s and onwards, and also we talk about those lesbian or transgender women. Okay, so their rights came in 1980s. So we actually see Dalit women are victim of like triple burden. Triple burden in the sense, first they are victim of patriarchal society, second is the caste system, and third is the poverty, and so they're living with that triple burden. So there are many more writings came up, intellectual work came up during that period of time. We talk about Ruth Manorama, we have that Baby Kamle and Urmila Power, and many intellectuals, many advocates wrote about the oppressive regime against Dalit women. And Dalit women is the sufferer. First, they are victim of patriarchy, both upper caste and Dalit male patriarchy. And then there is also they are victim of poverty. Okay, and then also you see that yeah. So that continued. So, but you see that Dalit women did not consider themselves as a very separate uh, unit or wing of activism, because they cannot be a separate movement. They cannot work as a separatist movement. They have to relate their experience and ideas with the experiences of the upper caste, middle caste feminism. Okay, so that they could continue their movement, which they have found. Although they faced a triple burden, but they haven't come up with a very distinct and separate movement. And they also continue their movement with this collective upper caste, and also middle class that collectives. So there were many collectives at that point of time. There are Saheli, Sri Sangathan, that also there is a voice against um, uh, women. Then these are some offline, you see, the collective we get to find, and there are also online offshoots of those collectives we get to find, and there are some other online practices you get to see. This is called digital mobilization. We call it feministofindia.com, then sparrow.com. There is also prajnaarchive.com, avaarchive.com. They try to create repositories of the uh, women problems and women's work, and try to create an understanding of women issues. Okay, so it is important to go through those materials which are available for women, how their narrative, there is a narrative on women suffering, and which were developed over the years, and this network trying to create a solidarity, the issues. So we see that in second and third world, we have in the transition from second to third, sorry, in the transition from second to third wave movement, we get to find gender and development paradigm. Okay, so in the gender and development paradigm, we focus on the role of capacity building basically, and structural issues are being highlighted. So for that, it highlighted the capacity building initiative. So that is also another, like, idea of development as freedom, development of freedom. So you are supposed to be free from economic subjugations, political subjugations, and also social subjugations. So when we talk about this political subjugations, we actually talk about freedom to vote, okay, freedom to take part in any collective actions, freedom to take any decisions. So you have to have your own decision. You're supposed to take decision, not to be guided by anyone else, but you are the one who will take your decisions. And for that, we talk about capability building, and we also talk about empowerment. Now in gender and development paradigm, we get to find the issues related to empowerment. Now, the kind of empowerment centric development which were being highlighted during that period of time was, you see, that uh, women are supposed to empower from within. Women are also supposed to, you say, empower, that is over others, that is exercising power over others, and women are also supposed to have power to others and also power with others. So these are some concepts which are also aligned to women empowerment, because that discourse came in gender and development discourse. So gender and development discourse is intertwined with empowerment discourse basically. So we talk about that women are supposed to have power over their colleague, their male counterpart. This is called power over. So having their own decisions. And power to. Power to means power to take any decisions in that context, in that space. Okay. And power over, that is also one thing, that they are not supposed to be imposed by any kind of decision. Hmm. And women are also supposed to take decisions when we talk about power too in that context. So they are supposed to get educations. They are supposed to get access to those infrastructure. They are supposed to get access to, uh, you see that industrialization and information sectors. Okay, get information and get healthcare facilities, get educations, okay, get safety security net, so that they can exercise power too. Okay, power to take decision. They have that power to take decision. Power over in the sense that it's not like they are being subjugated by a structure. They have their own claim, own say. Okay, this is a power over a structure, power over something. This is power over. And also power with. Okay, power with means they can collectively take decision with other women and with male folk. Power with. It's not like this is entirely isolated decisions, and they are also supposed to bring in into any collective, male collective, student collective, or whatever occupation based collective, geography based collective, so that they can exercise that power. Okay, and power within. That means it is related to their conscience. Okay, it is related to their thought process. So that they could be free from that political subjugations as well as economic subjugation. So when we talk about development of freedom, development as freedom, okay, we are actually talking about from women perspective. We are talking about those for power. We are talking about that's women power, that internal power. Okay, that power to think, power to imagine. Okay, then power to express. So there are certain capabilities we find, which Amartya Sen has highlighted. So this is capability of imagination, capability of thinking, capability of you see senses, capability to express emotions, capability of life, capability of bodily integrity. So these are capabilities which are also related to those um, you see empowerment doctrine. Okay, so it has focused on those parts. So it is a conceptual understanding of development as freedom. So you will have freedom when you can have the capacity to exercise your senses. Huh. আমি কওঁ ন চকু মুজি বহি থাকিলে নহ'ব, you are not exercising your sense sight. Hmm. I mean, we are blindfolded. Most of the time, our decisions are taken by someone else, and we're driven by whosoever has thought something. Okay, without giving a critical understanding of what is going on. Okay, so we are also, you see, um, we are blindfolded or what? We don't exercise our sense of sight, sense of vision. Okay, and also this when you talk about the senses, the that's a sense of your. That five sense organ you actually see, you can smell something, your gut is saying that intuitive sense is very important. We don't use that sense, but each one is having that sense. Okay. So, and for a journalist, it's very important to exercise those senses. Okay. So, that is the capability. You exercise your senses to understand the right and wrong so that you can have a decision over something, you can have a decision with something, you can have a decision to any issues, and you can have uh, satisfaction in within having that conscience. Okay, so that was being highlighted actually in gender and development, but no book will say so. I'll tell you because yeah, it will simply make some you see very uh, uh, bare concept like men's right. That's what the kind of issues that women are facing, locating into that structure. It will not speak much about that empowerment centric issues. But yeah, they will say that that the gender and development discourse has included the empowerment. But what kind of empowerment we are talking about will not be discussed. So, so it is important. Hence, so from you see that second wave to third wave, transition, we get to find the importance of gender and development discourse. And there we try to identify issues which are intertwined with different challenges and intersectional nature of the issues. Okay, intersectional nature of the issues, how women locate themselves into the socio-cultural milieu, and their issues, their problems are also being influenced by geography, influenced by culture, influenced by that system, political system, influenced by religion. Okay, so that is an intersectional nature of the issues which are being highlighted in gender and development discourse, and also the structure. You are supposed to overthrow the structure. It is not radical, but that's what women and development say. Without even identifying and locating women into that structure, said that okay, we are supposed to change the system. But you first need to understand how women are being placed into that system. Okay, so how women are being perceived into that system. So we say that women are supposed to be assertive, but being assertive doesn't mean that you will also disregard the right of a male fellow. Okay, so but at times when you say that you feel you are subjugated, you feel that you are being exploited and oppressed, you are supposed to show assertiveness. Okay, but if you are being benefited from all sides and you are getting too assertive and you are making someone subjugated, is not equated to women empowerment and is not what women right groups are looking for, especially those liberal group. Okay, so it is important to understand the assertiveness. When we are talking of assertiveness, you are being subjugated, you are being exploited, you haven't got anything, okay, in terms of the benefit from the system, even from the society, from the family. Okay, and you are raising voice against it. Understand, it is understandable. Okay, you are supposed to be assertive, because just because you were very soft spoken, just because you were submissive, just because you were playing the gender role and gender relation, you are being subjugated. Now be assertive, and there is an alliance to support you. Okay, and but at the same time, what I would also advocate that because now we are also talking about the other side, issues of other side. You cannot overthrow patriarchy. Locate yourself into the system and then you try to change it. Without locating the system, locating yourself into the system, you cannot change it. You have to go at par with the system, no? So you got everything and then you were trying to exploit anyone. The other is benefiting you and you are trying to exploit it. You go and say that this is wrong. Okay, and you see that there is iniquitous system which is available. One section of people getting every time they are getting all the benefit, they are taking away all the benefit. Why will you not claim for it? Okay, that is an iniquitous relationship. Hmm. And hence, development is very encompassing, I'm saying, and uh, it is also important to understand along with the system. You cannot understand development beyond the system. Okay, so and if you talk about the women in journalism, okay, one journalist was died. No, she committed suicide recently. I got a news. So it's very heartening. From any news or some news, one journalist, women journalist anchor committed suicide, and we used to call that. We see that now news anchor, in fact, the female have taken over the anchor position. So there is also a kind of, we have experienced a change in newsroom culture. Okay, but newsroom is also ghettoized. Women are not supposed to carry out um, uh, investigative report. They are not allowed to do any kind of investigative reporting. They are not allowed to do a political story. Okay, in that way, they are not allowed to have a voice, political voice. They are allowed to do lifestyle stories, celebrity issues. You go, you see. Okay, so in that way also you will see there is a categorization. People will say that we are thinking about uh, social security. We are thinking about your security. Politics is much more like, you see, um, dirty. So you are not supposed to come into it. But at the same time, that lifestyle issue, the fashion and all, these are also very dirty field. Okay, so you're supposed to expose to it, but you're not supposed to expose to politics. So you actually see there is a categorization even in news reporting. Okay, women, if they are married, they're not supposed to continue their career in news agency once they are married. Few women are able to continue their career after marriage, okay, having that support. But mostly, once they got married, they uh, tend to discontinue their career. So they cannot continue, they cannot have that family obligation and career at parallel or together. Okay, so these are also issues come under gender and development. So we'll be discussing more if you allow, if we come tomorrow. Okay.